Okay, let's dive into something that, well, it touches on one of the most complex human emotions there is. Jealousy. Most of us have felt it at some point, right? Maybe a little pang of it in a relationship or, even seeing someone else's success. It feels pretty universal.
It absolutely is. It's that feeling that can flare up when you sense a threat to something you value deeply, whether that's a romantic connection, a close friendship, or even you're standing in a group.
But here's where it gets really interesting and often quite troubling. What happens when that feeling stops being just a temporary wave?
Right.
When it becomes consuming, excessive, and starts dictating behavior in truly destructive ways? When does healthy, natural jealousy cross the line and become something pathological?
That transition, that jump from a normal human emotion to a psychological disorder, that's the critical difference we're exploring today.
And that is precisely our mission for this deep dive, custom tailored for you. We've pulled together insights from a stack of sources, including the expertise of mental health specialists like Dr. Ahmed Dabor, Dr. Khalil Al-Ziyud, and Dr. Jasim Al-Mutawa.
Some really key names there.
Alongside detailed articles and clinical definitions, sometimes known as Othello syndrome.
We're going to walk through this step by step. What does that line look like between healthy and pathological? Where do the sources say these intense feelings come from?
How do they actually show up?
Yeah, how do they manifest? What kind of damage do they inflict on relationships? We'll clarify some related concepts like suspicion and possessiveness.
Important distinctions.
Very. And most importantly, look at the paths forward, how this can be treated and what strategies can help, both for the person experiencing it and their partner.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. How do our sources define that crucial difference between the normal feeling and the illness?
They are quite clear on this. Natural jealousy is described as a normal, temporary feeling. It's a reaction that happens when you perceive a real or potential threat to your position or relationship.
Like a signal. Something you care about might be vulnerable. Some sources even frame moderate jealousy as like a sign of love or appreciation for what you have.
Exactly. And it's usually manageable, short-lived, doesn't take over your life.
Right.
Now, pathological jealousy, that's a fundamentally different beast. This is where it becomes an illness, a psychological disorder. It's not just strong, it's excessive, persistent, and goes far beyond those natural limits.
Leading to serious problems.
Yeah, significant deterioration in the person's life and relationships.
So the key isn't just the intensity, but its persistence and its impact. Is that fair?
Precisely. Pathological jealousy becomes an intense, often unwarranted obsession. It's frequently based on unfounded suspicions and illogical ideas that are, detached from reality. One source highlights the clinical terms, morbid jealousy or Othello syndrome. This describes a state where the person is constantly preoccupied with delusional thoughts about their partner's infidelity.
Delusional thoughts.
Without any concrete, real-world evidence.
Wow. That Othello syndrome name itself is powerful, isn't it? It conjures that image of being consumed by false beliefs of betrayal.
It really captures that delusional core. The sources emphasize it becomes a mental illness when it causes such severe disruption and negative impact on a person's life and their connections. It's the severity and the disconnect from reality that makes it pathological.
Got it. That distinction is vital. It's not just an unpleasant feeling. It's a condition that severely impacts functionality. So if that's what it is, what are the experts saying about why it happens? What are the roots of this intense, unfounded jealousy?
It's a complex picture, really, stemming from a blend of psychological and social factors.
Our sources highlight a few recurring themes here, don't they?
They do. A major driver is consistently identified as low self-confidence or self-esteem. Individuals who struggle with feeling worthy of love or attention, or who see themselves as inadequate, are seen as significantly more susceptible. The fear of losing a partner often isn't just about the partner.
It's internal.
Yes. It stems from feeling incapable or worrying that the partner will inevitably find someone better. Not appreciating oneself internally can lead directly to doubting whether a partner's love is genuine or lasting.
So a vulnerability within oneself creates a suspicion about the external relationship. That's interesting.
That's a key insight from the sources. It's often an internal battle projected outwards, and they stress that working on self-development is a critical part of addressing this root cause.
Makes sense.
Another significant factor is painful past experiences. Having been betrayed in previous relationships can leave deep emotional scars.
Yeah, of course.
Making it incredibly difficult to trust in new connections. Past failures in relationships can also increase caution and breed doubt.
Past trauma casting a long shadow. That rings true.
Absolutely. Negative thinking patterns are also crucial. There's a tendency to overthink, overanalyze, and consistently interpret a partner's actions in the worst possible light.
Always looking for the negative.
Right. They might feel threatened by situations that most people would view as completely normal or harmless. Their internal narrative is constantly confirming their fears.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. Insecure attachment styles are also a strong root cause, with one source linking it particularly to borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
Unstable childhood relationships can create a deep-seated anxiety about the stability of relationships later in life. If someone depends entirely on a partner for happiness, security, or validation, the fear of losing that sole source of support can fuel excessive pathological jealousy.
That fear of abandonment driving intense vigilance and control, I can see that.
Yes. And we can't ignore external factors like social and cultural influences. Social media in particular is mentioned as contributing through constant comparison.
Oh, definitely.
Which can exacerbate feelings of inadequacy and fuel this type of jealousy.
Comparing your real life to the highlight reels everyone else presents online.
Then there are underlying psychological and even physical conditions. Our sources note that conditions like borderline personality disorder, narcissism, schizophrenia, delusional disorder.
Wow, a whole range.
Yes. Substance addiction too, especially alcohol or drugs. And even certain organic brain diseases like Parkinson's can contribute to or co-occur with pathological jealousy.
So it can be linked to brain chemistry or other disorders.
Exactly. In some cases, it might even be linked to a chemical imbalance in the brain.
So it can be a symptom or a manifestation of a broader health issue.
Correct. And interestingly, upbringing and family environment are also seen as playing a role.
How so?
Well, growing up in a home where jealousy or conflict was prevalent might lead someone to adopt these behaviors or see them as normal. Witnessing infidelity or unstable relationships in their parents or siblings can create a deeply ingrained belief that infidelity is common or inevitable.
Making them constantly on guard.
Exactly. It's a learned pattern of suspicion.
Okay.
One source even touches on a less common perspective, suggesting that low sexual activity in men could potentially contribute to this delusion, fueled by anxieties about their ability to satisfy their partner.
That's a very specific angle.
Yeah.
Interesting. So we see a complex web of potential roots, many tied back to internal struggles with self-worth and trust. Given these roots, how does this pathological jealousy actually look in a person's daily life and behavior? What are the signs?
This is where the rubber meets the road, distinguishing it clearly from normal feelings. The sources provide a pretty clear picture of the manifestations.
Okay.
The most prominent is constant, baseless suspicion. It's excessive doubt about a partner with no real evidence. Accusations of infidelity are common, often based on completely innocent actions or situations.
So the lack of evidence is key.
Absolutely. This unwarranted, persistent doubt is really the core of the delusion. It's not just a fleeting worry, it's a fixed, unfounded belief.
Got it.
And this often leads to behaviors aimed at control and monitoring. The person attempts to exert complete control over their partner's life, who they see, where they go, what they do. This can escalate to actively preventing the partner from spending time with friends or family, essentially isolating them and controlling their social interactions.
Cutting them off from support systems.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's controlling.
precisely. Then you have the confirming behaviors, the active searching and spying.
Ah, the detective work.
Right. This involves secretly checking the partner's phone, social media, email, or personal belongings looking for proof. Our sources are explicit that this kind of spying is inappropriate and harmful.
Definitely harmful.
In more extreme cases, they might plant recording devices or try to enlist others to spy on their partner.
Wow. That level of invasion is truly alarming.
It is. Another key sign is excessive anxiety and tension. There's a constant, overwhelming worry about the partner's interactions with anyone else, and a perpetual, consuming fear of being abandoned or betrayed.
They're living in a state of perpetual high alert.
Yes, exactly. It also involved pervasive overthinking and negative analysis. They interpret every word, every glance, every action by the partner through the lens of suspicion.
Seeing threats everywhere.
They overanalyze even trivial events, desperate to find proof of betrayal or neglect. One source shares a fascinating example of individuals believing they can detect infidelity from incredibly subtle, often imagined signs like a specific smile, a certain look, or even a smell on their partner.
A smell. Wow.
Completely misinterpreting benign behavior. They're constructing a narrative of betrayal out of thin air.
It's intense.
Social isolation is another common tactic, stemming from the fear that if the partner interacts with others, they might find someone else. This leads to attempts to keep the partner away from friends and family. This constant tension and suspicion can also boil over into aggressive behavior, escalating to verbal or even physical aggression.
That's a significant danger sign, obviously.
Definitely. They can also be easily offended, feeling personally insulted by any attention or compliments their partner receives, even if it's completely harmless social interaction.
Hypersensitive.
Very. And the sources mention destructive actions, such as intentionally creating problems to make the partner feel guilty, or constantly attacking and blaming the partner for imagined wrongdoings.
Navigating that barrage of unfounded accusations and controlling behaviors must be incredibly difficult for the partner. Speaking of which, how does this pathological jealousy impact relationships? The picture painted by the sources seems pretty bleak.
It is. It really is. Pathological jealousy isn't just a personal struggle, it's a profound relationship destroyer. If left unaddressed, it creates an environment of escalating emotional problems and intense tension.
It sounds like it completely erodes the foundation of trust, just eats away at it.
That's precisely what happens. It creates a pervasive environment of insecurity. The partner who is constantly under suspicion becomes emotionally exhausted by the relentless accusations and the lack of trust shown towards them.
I can only imagine.
This constant pressure inevitably leads to a loss of their own trust in the viability and safety of the relationship.
I can't imagine the emotional toll of constantly feeling accused for things you haven't done. It must be immense.
It is. Healthy relationships are built on trust, love, and mutual respect. Without trust, the relationship transforms from a source of support into a constant psychological burden for both individuals.
The burden, yeah.
As we touched on, the attempts at social isolation further increase relationship tension and isolate the partner.
Creating a feedback loop where the controlling behavior pushes the partner away, which then potentially fuels more jealousy.
Exactly. That's a really destructive cycle.
Right.
One source uses a powerful metaphor describing the suspected partner as feeling like they are on a perpetual witness stand,
Oh, wow.
constantly interrogated and needing to prove their innocence.
That really brings home the psychological pressure.
Yeah.
Like being on trial constantly.
And tragically, the potential for escalation is very real and very dangerous. Pathological jealousy can lead to verbal or physical violence. While our sources don't explicitly detail homicide, the reference to Othello syndrome, rooted in a story ending in death driven by this very delusion, underscores the most extreme outcomes possible.
The potential for serious harm is a critical point here. We can't downplay that.
Absolutely. And the constant suspicion, the accusations, the lack of trust, all of this can eventually drive the partner away. They might withdraw emotionally as a coping mechanism, or in some heartbreaking anecdotal examples mentioned in one source, the targeted partner might even consider infidelity as a reaction to the relentless false accusations.
No, really.
Yeah, almost as if to say, if I'm going to be accused constantly anyway, maybe I should actually do it. This highlights the perverse, destructive nature of the disorder.
That's incredibly sad and twisted. That the baseless fear could ironically push someone towards the very thing feared.
It shows how damaging it is. Ultimately, the sources agree. Pathological jealousy, if untreated, frequently leads to relationship failure, separation, or divorce. It's a corrosive force.
It certainly sounds like a near-guaranteed path to breakdown without intervention. Okay, before we discuss healing, let's clarify some distinctions our sources bring up. There's jealousy versus suspicion, and also jealousy versus possessiveness. Can you break those down?
These are important nuances. One source briefly distinguishes between jealousy and suspicion. Suspicion is certainly a part of pathological jealousy. It's the doubt itself.
Oh,
But the defining feature of the pathological form is the persistent, baseless nature of that doubt. It's an unwarranted, enduring belief in infidelity despite evidence to the contrary.
So suspicion is the feeling of doubt, but pathological jealousy is the condition where that doubt is unfounded, persistent, and debilitating. Makes sense.
Exactly. The distinction between jealousy and possessiveness is also highlighted as significant. While they can look similar on the surface because both involve intense focus on a partner, they differ fundamentally in their underlying motive, their outward behavior, and their impact.
What's that core difference in motive then?
Jealousy, even in its pathological form, fundamentally stems from the fear of losing something valuable, the person, the relationship status, due to a perceived threat. Possessiveness, in contrast, is driven by a strong desire for complete control over the other person,
Control.
treating them almost like property to be managed.
Fear of loss versus need for control. That's a clear difference. I see that.
It is. In terms of behavior, moderate, healthy jealousy might lead to open conversations about feelings or concerns. Possessiveness manifests as active monitoring, dictating choices, and controlling the partner's freedoms and interactions.
Okay.
The impact is also different. Moderate jealousy can potentially strengthen a relationship by signaling value, whereas possessiveness is almost always destructive, weakening the bond through restrictions, leading to insecurity, tension, and isolation for everyone involved.
And I imagine the path to addressing them differs significantly if the root is different.
It does. The sources suggest healthy jealousy can often be managed through open communication and rational analysis. Possessiveness, being rooted more deeply in control and self-perception, typically requires more focused psychological work on self-confidence and understanding that underlying need to dominate or control.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then there's the absolutely crucial distinction between unfounded, baseless jealousy and reacting to something that is actually happening or has happened. This seems critical.
This is perhaps the most important point the experts make about pathological jealousy. It is almost by definition not based on concrete real-world evidence.
Right.
There is a huge difference between reacting to a legitimate concern, a discovered infidelity, or actual suspicious behavior, versus manufacturing betrayal from completely minor, imagined, or normal events. One source shares compelling anecdotes of partners building elaborate, completely untrue scenarios in their minds based on tiny details or even nothing at all, contrasting this vividly with situations where infidelity was actually proven.
So the hallmark of the pathological form is precisely that detachment from objective reality, the story in their head.
Exactly. The battle is being fought entirely within the person's mind, detached from what is actually happening externally.
Okay.
One interesting point a source raises is that sometimes men experience jealousy of their partners, perhaps their success, intelligence, or attractiveness, rather than solely jealousy on them, meaning being jealous of external threats like potential rivals.
Jealousy directed at the partner's own qualities, not just at external perceived threats.
That's a fascinating different angle. Okay, this is a heavy topic and sounds incredibly destructive, but the outline points towards hope paths to healing. What do the sources say about treatment and coping strategies? Can this be fixed?
Addressing pathological jealousy is absolutely crucial, and the good news is that our sources confirm solutions are available. Seeking professional psychological support is consistently highlighted as the most important step.
Professional help first.
Yes. The specific treatment approach will depend on the individual symptoms and the underlying causes we discussed earlier. Okay, let's break that down first. For the person experiencing the jealousy, what help is available for them?
Professional psychological treatment is the cornerstone. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is frequently mentioned as very effective.
CBT, okay.
The goal here is to identify and challenge the illogical thoughts and beliefs that are fueling the jealousy. CBT helps the person learn to recognize these patterns, reduce their unfounded doubts, and develop better ways to control their intense emotional reactions like anger and anxiety.
Learning coping skills.
Yes, it teaches practical strategies for managing these difficult feelings, directly tackling the distorted thinking patterns.
Got it.
Individual psychotherapy is also vital. This helps the person delve deeper to uncover the root causes: past trauma, unresolved trust issues from childhood, or that low self-image we talked about. The therapy works to heal those old wounds, improve self-image, and build self-confidence. This helps reduce their reliance on the partner for validation and security, which, as we know, is often a major root cause.
Getting to the source of the internal insecurity, that sounds key.
Couples or family therapy can also be very beneficial. This involves the partner or key family members in the process.
Right, bring them in.
It helps improve communication and understanding between everyone involved, which can reduce misunderstandings and provide a space to rebuild trust. It offers a structured environment for support, not just for the jealous person, but for the relationship system as a whole.
Involving the people impacted in the healing process. That makes sense.
In some cases, medical treatment with medication may be recommended.
Medication?
Yes, particularly if the pathological jealousy is linked to severe anxiety, depression, or an underlying psychotic disorder like delusional disorder or schizophrenia. Antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications, prescribed and monitored by a medical professional, might be used to help manage symptoms.
Yeah?
Especially if there's suspicion of a chemical imbalance contributing.
So a combination of therapy and potentially medication, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
What about things the person can do themselves? Self-help.
Personal effort and self-help are absolutely essential alongside professional support. A critical first step is developing self-awareness, learning to identify if the source of the feeling is a real, legitimate concern, or if it's coming purely from imagination and unfounded fear.
Figuring out where it's really coming from.
Exactly. Building self-confidence is also key. Focusing energy on developing personal strengths, hobbies, and positive aspects of oneself helps build that internal security, turning the focus inward in a healthy way.
Right.
Learning to control obsessive thoughts is also crucial. Sources suggest consciously resisting these intrusive thoughts. One source even frames this, from a religious perspective, as seeking refuge from negative influences. But the core idea is telling your mind to stop dwelling on suspicions when there's no evidence.
Actively fighting those thoughts.
Yes. Using relaxation techniques like focused breathing can help manage the intense anxiety that comes with the jealousy. Fundamentally, it involves learning to manage emotions and practice realistic thinking.
That sounds like a significant internal battle that requires dedication. It's not easy.
Definitely not.
Now, what about the partner? This must be so hard for them. How can they navigate supporting someone who is experiencing this while also protecting themselves?
This side of the equation is equally vital and, frankly, very challenging. Communication and transparency are essential, but they need to be handled very carefully.
How so?
The advice is to talk honestly and openly about feelings and fears without making accusations back. Listen carefully to the jealous partner's concerns, but be firm in your reality. Being honest and transparent in your actions, avoiding unnecessary secrecy, is highlighted as helping to calm suspicion over time.
Openness, but not enabling the delusion. Tricky balance.
Exactly. And this is a crucial, perhaps counterintuitive piece of advice from the sources. Do not defend baseless accusations.
Really, don't defend yourself.
Getting into arguments or trying to logically disprove every unfounded suspicion is often counterproductive. Step back emotionally. Defensiveness can easily be misinterpreted by the jealous person as guilt or hiding something.
Ah, I see.
Respond calmly, stating your truth without excessive emotional reaction. And perhaps most importantly, do not apologize if you are innocent.
Why not apologize? Seems like it might smooth things over.
Because apologizing or admitting fault for something you haven't done can actually reinforce the jealous person's delusion, making them believe their suspicion was justified.
That makes so much sense. You don't want to validate the unfounded belief.
Precisely. Showing affection and providing emotional security is important, demonstrating consistently through your actions that you value the relationship and your partner helps provide reassurance.
Reaffirming the bond, not just with words, but consistent action. Got it.
Setting healthy boundaries is also absolutely essential, both for the relationship and for the partner's own well-being.
Boundaries, yes.
Define clear boundaries around interactions with friends, colleagues, or family. Agree on what feels respectful for the relationship. But critically, the sources emphasize that the partner's needs and autonomy matter too. They shouldn't have to completely sacrifice their social life or well-being to appease unfounded fears.
Boundaries for mutual respect and self-preservation, that's a really important point. You can't lose yourself in it.
Exactly. Being consistently available when your partner reaches out in a calm way can help soothe their anxiety over time and slowly build trust. Patience and consistent support are fundamental. Healing from this takes time and requires effort from both people. Continue discussing concerns calmly when possible and acknowledge small steps forward. It's definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
You sound like it.
One strategy mentioned, though, with a big caution sign, is to potentially avoid unnecessary situations that are known triggers for baseless suspicion only if it doesn't compromise your healthy autonomy or isolate you further.
A delicate balance.
Very delicate. It's about being supportive without enabling or sacrificing your own life. One source also offers the insight that in a moment of intense crisis fueled by jealousy, sometimes saying nothing, offering a calm, affectionate response, or simply validating the feeling, not the accusation, might be more effective than trying to use logic.
Because they're not thinking logically then.
Exactly. The jealous person is often in a highly emotional, non-rational state. And finally, seeking external support for the partner is vital. Friends, family, or even a therapist for the partner alone can provide needed support to cope with the stress of the situation.
It sounds like the partner needs their own support system to navigate this successfully. They can't do it alone.
Absolutely. This situation carries significant risks and challenges, and ignoring pathological jealousy is incredibly dangerous. One major challenge is the difficulty the jealous person often has in truly accepting their partner's truth or seeing their efforts to change or be transparent, even after things are openly discussed.
The delusion persists.
Their belief system can be so deeply ingrained. The delusion can be more powerful than the reality right in front of them.
Yeah.
There's also a significant potential for self-harm or suicidal thoughts in the person experiencing the jealousy, especially when it co-occurs with conditions like depression or substance addiction. This risk is highlighted and underscores the severe nature.
That really emphasizes the need for professional help immediately if those signs are there.
Without question. And a critical, often devastating risk mentioned is the impact on children in the household.
Oh, the children.
Children exposed to a parent with severe pathological jealousy are at high risk of physical and emotional abuse, constantly witnessing conflict and violence. Tragically, they can even be manipulated or used by the jealous parent to spy on the other parent.
That's heartbreaking. Using the kids.
The psychological effects on these children can be devastating and long-lasting. It's a problem that reaches far beyond the couple, impacting the entire family system.
It really highlights the widespread damage this disorder can inflict. Sobering.
It is.
We started this deep dive by acknowledging that jealousy is a natural emotion. After exploring the depths of its pathological form and its destruction, it feels important to circle back to that idea of healthy jealousy. It's not all bad, right?
It is important. The sources are careful to state that, yes, not all jealousy is bad. There is a healthy or moderate type, which is seen as very different from the pathological form.
Okay.
This healthy type is based on legitimate concern, a real perceived threat, or actual protective instincts, not baseless suspicion or imagined scenarios. It's grounded in reality and legitimate boundaries.
Got it. Reality-based.
Yes. One source also offers a perspective, perhaps rooted in cultural or religious views, where healthy jealousy is seen as a positive force for protecting sacred boundaries, honor, or the integrity of relationships and family. In this view, a complete absence of this type of protective jealousy might even be seen negatively.
Interesting perspective.
The key, as always, is the ability to distinguish this reality-based proportionate concern from the unfounded, destructive pathological form.
That distinction is crucial. Being concerned for the relationship in a healthy way versus being consumed by unfounded suspicion that destroys it.
Exactly. Well put.
Well, we've certainly taken a deep dive into the complex and often painful world of pathological jealousy today. A lot to think about.
We've covered the journey from a normal feeling gone awry, exploring its varied roots and psychological vulnerabilities and external factors, examining the destructive behaviors it manifests, and understanding the profound damage it inflicts on trust, relationships, and even children.
And crucially, we've mapped out the paths to healing described in the sources, the importance of professional help through therapy and maybe medication, the challenging but necessary self-work, and the delicate balance required from the partner to support while maintaining their own boundaries in reality.
Remember, the sources offer hope, solutions are available, and seeking support for yourself or a loved one is a powerful step towards healing. It's not a sign of weakness.
Absolutely. Considering everything we've discussed today, the deep roots, the often baseless nature of the suspicion, and its devastating impact on the core of trust, perhaps the most challenging aspect lies within the person experiencing it. If the evidence is so frequently manufactured internally, and the fear stems from a battle with one's own insecurity, how can someone truly be convinced of their partner's faithfulness if they haven't first won that war within themselves?
That raises a fundamental question, doesn't it? For anyone grappling with this or supporting someone who is. If the problem is rooted in a subjective internal perception rather than objective external behavior, what does that truly mean for the process of rebuilding trust and a relationship on solid ground?
Something powerful for you to consider.